country and in a world that is being run by unbelievably sick people. The chasm between what we're told is going on and what is really going on is absolutely immense.
Oh yeah, dude. There's some Nephilim shit.
It's like we all know what's going down, but no one's saying shit. What happened to the home of the brave? These motherfuckers, they controlling us now, and no one's talking about how they made us fight to be slaves. And everybody's just walking around, head in the closet, on the way to a dead in the grave. But at least we made, we need to be ready to raise up. Welcome to the end of days. Everybody is slave, only some are aware that the government releasing poison.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Nephilim Death Squad, the show where we hunt down and expose Nephilim shit. I am David Lee Corbo, a.k.a. The Raven. That's Top Lobster. And before we jump into it, I just got to admit, I've had some headphone issues recently, and so every time Top says, like, man, that intro really hypes me up, man, like Vinny Paz and the graphics and the whole Nephilim shit dropping, I've just been nodding my head and lying that I understand what he's talking. I haven't been able to hear it, and it does, dude. Now I can finally hear it. It does hype me up. I'm ready to go, and today we are here with the man, the myth, the legend himself, Paul of Understanding Conspiracy. What's going on, brother? How are you?
I'm pretty good, guys. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
I'm very excited. I was listening to
Dude,
Raven's
I'm stoked.
episode, with you on it originally, maybe before we even started the show, and you broke down the whole clown conspiracy. Then you were on tinfoil hat, and I was like, this guy, like, you brought a new you brought a new layer of this Nephilim shit that we like to look into. This beautiful, disgusting onion that every time I peel back a layer just makes me cry more. And I'm like, man, you blew my mind. So I'm looking forward to just you telling us about this today and me actually being in the room and being able to like, wait a second, extrapolate on that.
All right. Yeah. No, it's good to be here. Yeah. What was it, about 2-3 months ago we had our talk there, Raven? Something like that? Roughly?
Yeah, it's actually really cool because I'm here with two dudes that gave me a chance like really early in the show's life. I mean, really in the grand scheme of things, it's still very early. I've only been doing the show now for, I think, a little bit over 4 months, but both of you guys took a chance on me. And man, Paul, like, really helped me come out of the gate hot with a banger when as far as like information goes, because it's a incredibly dense theory and you've done a lot of homework. And one of the things that I love about you, and I just want to say this, and then I'd like you to just let people know about yourself and where they can find your work, but was that you were sort of brought to the table with conspiracies, if I'm correct in my recall here, being tasked with doing a paper at university on sort of maybe the psychological aspects of conspiracies and why they're so popular and how they seem to be found in like every culture amongst every people. And you went into this as a skeptic, as a younger man. I believe you even said that you were atheist. And after delving into the realm of conspiracies and you know, sort of trying to pick it apart and almost disprove it and maybe paint it more as a psychological aspect, you came out of it as a conspiracy theorist yourself.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, yeah. I mean, I studied a fine art degree at university in Lincoln in the UK. And, you know, I was pretty much of a stereotypical art student, smoking weed every day, taking psychedelics, you know, just doing the usual things university students do. But I kind of started to delve into conspiracy theories as a subject matter for my artwork, because you have to just generate artwork constantly for 3 years, and you have these teachers who mark it basically constantly. There's no like test at the end of the year or anything. It's just a constant 3-year study and a constant form of evaluation. And
what kind of art are you doing? Are you doing graphic art or more like
painting,
physical, tangible?
For me, It was always painting, drawing, physical stuff. I was never much of a computer artist ever. I've always just been that way. I like to use my hands, you know.
And are you still doing this?
Not so much having a kid these days. No, I don't find time to.
I feel your pain, brother. I got 2, yeah. So it's like, you know, time is. But if you ever do get back into that, hit me up because we could do some really fun stuff, like really cool stuff. Just hit me up later. Think about that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always looking for a way to get back into it, but it's just I just don't have time, you know. And with the channel and everything now as well, I do a lot of work on this now. This is my artwork now. This is what happened basically. By the end of my 3-year degree, I had this channel, and this became my work. This is I started making videos, like David was saying, you know, from this psychological perspective of conspiracy. Why do people believe these things? You know, are they crazy, or do they have the right information and they just seem crazy because of what it does to them? You know, but they're actually true. You know, and I basically came to the conclusion that no, this is the right information. This is all real. It's just the people saying it are crazy and no one takes them seriously. They can't present it. They're not presenting it very well. But this is like a decade ago. This was the early days of conspiracy theories. You know, this is when Requiem for a Dream was blasting in the background while you saw a meteor crashing into a planet exploding type YouTube videos. You know, this was cheesy, over the top, over dramatized imagery with the Matrix clips put in there every like 3 seconds. You know, it was old school days of presentations basically, and no one was taking it seriously then. And I kind of got past that and realized at the bottom of it all, no, this is real. This is actually really happening. Like, there's a conspiracy, and I suppose I wanted to make a channel which would say them in a way that people could relate to more easily and not think it's crazy. Because I kind of developed this philosophy because I've always been a kind of a salesman. I've always worked in retail, and even now I'm a self-employed photographer. I have to sell myself, you know. But you've got to... People don't buy products, they buy the person selling the product. So you have to... You're an ambassador for the truth, and if you look crazy, people aren't going to buy the information that you're trying to sell them because they don't want to end up like you. But if you seem well put together and calm and cool and collect, then they'll psychologically think, well, he seems well put together and he believes it, so there must be something to it. That's kind of how we have to do it. It's sad that people work that way. Like I said, you know, but some people do lose their mind very quickly when they start spiraling down rabbit holes, and it does turn them into weirdos. It does. I've been there. We've all been there. It's what happens, you know, and it's perfectly normal. But I try myself to help people stay grounded. That's kind of what my channel was originally all about. But then I developed this theory as I did my own research into the conspiracy, which we're going to talk about today. So yeah.
Yeah, you know what? You're 100% right, man. I find myself going in and out of that. Like, whenever you find out something new, you're like, holy shit, Charlie Day pointing at the wall with the fucking, you know, the rope. And I found a good way to outlet this for people, anybody listening. I mean, either intense study and writing books like Paul is doing, or like comedy and jest. If you kind of keep yourself lighthearted, people also, they'll laugh. They'll not quite know where to put you, and they also don't know when you're completely serious. We're like, well, no, it's interdimensional beings, and they're, you know, the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. That's what I'm talking about. And they're like, ha, this guy's fucking funny. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll talk to you in a year. You know, you're not ready
I love
yet.
that though. That really does work out because comedy is the great sort of equalizer. It brings people's guard down, you know, and allows for these ideas to sort of permeate and be considered, at least, because that guard is that defense that they put up. That's a defense that they're using to protect their entire worldview. And so it's understandable when people are resistant to ideas like this, because it's not a fun thing having your paradigm shattered. I'm sure that all three of us can speak to that to some degree. And I was just lucky enough to I'm good at pattern recognition, and I'm good at I'm good at noticing. I'm good at recognizing when something doesn't feel right. There we go. Perfect, Gustav. Something doesn't feel right. The official explanation isn't suffice. And if I can find something that, after looking at it a bit, fits much better as a lens to look at the world through, then I'm going to adopt that. And that doesn't mean in a permanent fashion, but that means I'm going to play with this lens a lot more. Instead of allowing it to upset me, becoming very rigid, becoming defensive, I just swap the lens out. It doesn't matter. I've popped in a lot of lenses that don't work, guys. And all you do is you take it out, you put it to the side, and I don't even really throw it away. I just put it on a shelf somewhere, and I go, maybe later. Maybe there's some validity to that. Maybe it's not all true, but let me try this new one on. And a lot of people, they have a hard time with that. So before we get into Paul's really excellent theory, I would like if you could just let the audience know where they can find you and a bit about the work that you've done and where they can find that work.
Sure, yeah. So I'm primarily on YouTube. That's where I do all my stuff. I make videos. I've been on there for a decade. It's called UnderstandingConspiracy. And if if you go on there, you'll see I do quite a lot of things. It's not just the Nephilim theory that we talk about today, but that is primarily what I've become known for. Like I said, I have many playlists on my channel where I'm decoding the occult symbolism in media. You know, I've got a Tips for Truthers series, which is basically, again, trying to help people stay calm and give them advice on how to deal with learning this information. I have a series on the music industry as well, which I'm kind of like doing, and another one called Remember, where I go into old school theories that you may have forgotten from the past. So I do a lot of things on there, but YouTube is the place to find it all. I am on.
I gotta do a deep dive on your content now, because I just like glimpsed through like the stuff that I knew you were talking about, but yeah, a lot of this stuff sounds really interesting, like things that we've forgotten. And you could just kind of dust this off. It's like, we need to get a guest for this random conspiracy. You know, it's like,
There's stuff on there, honestly, which I had to jog my memory about and go back and do some research, because it's been 10 years since I've looked at it myself, and it really is a nostalgia trip. A lot of the theories I bring up on there you will have forgotten about, but they have been around and they are quite prevalent and important, and they're still happening, but people have just kind of pushed them to the back of the mind because something new and crazy has come along, and you kind of forget about these conspiracies that are still real, still happening. Just
that's
old.
The thing.
Yeah.
You're arguing with your family at Thanksgiving dinner, right? And you're like, listen, they did this and they did this, and then you're like, fuck, what else did they do?
Yeah.
But I know I was on to something. And you, like, if you go back down this rabbit hole he's talking about, you can probably just rattle them off. Like, here's 10 things that happened that you just can't deny that happened in sequence, you know?
Yeah.
But like, we're too stupid to remember, because it's like they're fear trauming us with the next thing, and you can't think like, 10 minutes before.
That's so true. Shout out to Project Cheney in the chat. I did an episode with her on the Ravens Watch. We got to get her on Nephilim Death Squad, because one of the things that we did was we revisited. She said something excellent. She was just like, as conspiracy theorists, we're always looking forward. We're looking at what's happening now and trying to predict the next thing. And because of that, we lose a lot of information in the back end, man. And it's like, I've been doing this for a long time, and I find myself talking about the now and the future, instead of revisiting all the wild things that have happened in the past. And all we did, Cheney and I, was go back to just 2019. And it was like, the whole episode was like, dude, I forgot that happened. I forgot that happened. It was all this insane stuff, especially around, the Q shit and all the celebrities when the vid first popped off, and all these celebrities are doing all these weird videos. Ellen DeGeneres has ankle monitors on, and she looks like she's been crying, and all the craziest crap was happening. And yeah, man, we just have this tunnel vision, this horses with blinders. We look forward and we look at the ground, but we don't look at what's behind us anymore.
But it's the trauma. It's the trauma, Corbo. I'm going to start calling him Corbo. We're going to make that happen.
Okay.
How about it? Let's go about it.
It's the trauma, because I can't remember clearly before 9/11, but I know I was listening to Tinfoil Hat like since its inception. I mean, before 9/11, before COVID. Look at this. Do you see how my brain is like linking the trauma? Like we went from one trauma to the next, and like the shit in between doesn't quite matter, because even though I'm aware of it, it's still hard to overcome, because it is a tangible human reaction that we have to this Nephilim shit.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Hey, Paul, real quick, you do have a book you're working on, right?
Oh yeah. Like I said, I've been doing this Nephilim look like clowns theory since about 2016. October the 3rd, 2016 is the day I made my first video on the subject. And what am I now? What's that now? 7-8 years later, I'm halfway through writing a book on the subject. There's a GoFundMe. You can go and support it with the pre-orders on there if you're interested in getting involved. You'll get a special thank you, your own name in the book as well as a signed copy from myself once it's published. But basically, I've been doing this so long that I just had this huge body of work. I have like a 43-episode series dedicated to breaking all this down, going into many facets. There's discoveries along the way as I do my research, And I've realized this needs putting in writing before I end up getting taken away and everything just disappears, So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm working on the book, and the support has been amazing, overwhelming. People are thirsty for this information. It's quite amazing.
Well,
I'm shocked.
We'll be sure then to link the GoFundMe in the description below. I'm really excited for that. I'll certainly be one of the first purchasers as soon as that book comes out. I'll be looking forward to adding that to the collection. Real quick, how long do we have you? Because I want to see how we're going to play this out.
I can go till about 10, quarter to 10. I can go for 2 hours, something like that.
Okay, perfect. So then, because we're chatty Cathys, we're going to interrupt you a lot. We're going to have a lot of questions. And so just keep that in mind as we're going through this. But I want you to start at sort of the beginning of your argument. What is it, do you think, that makes the modern day visage of the clown sort of an homage to the actual visage rather of the Nephilim?
Okay, yeah. So I've been trying to condense this down to a quick elevator pitch for a good year or two, to be honest, and I'm getting there. I have just released a Nephilim Clown Connection in 15 minutes video where I've broken it down as quickly as I possibly can, and even then I didn't get everything in there, so we'll flesh it all out today. But if I could basically just very quickly summarize it, it's that what we call a clown and the image of a clown in the Western Hemisphere, that the Western world, the European American kind of version of a clown, is a purposely created symbol that represents demons or the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim giants that were once on the earth. That's the theory quickly summarized, and I have gone on to prove that there is some nefarious, weird stuff going on in the creation of a clown throughout history. Specifically this Western iteration. Now, the work is primarily what I do, an anthropological study of different folk traditional cultures found all around the earth on every continent. These are the oldest traditions that these ancient traditional cultures and religions have been following, even long before their religions came along. This is old, ritualistic, passed down through word of mouth generationally for thousands of years type stuff. And you'll find they all have this thing called ancestor spirit worship, where they like to dress up in a very weird, psychedelic coloured, white-skinned, polka dot, big golden crown, red-haired, headdressed-looking thing, like a clown, something similar to a clown, kind of similar to what we would describe as clownish features, for the sole purpose of channeling or warding away Nephilim spirits, or their ancestor spirits, as they call them. So when they say ancestor spirits, they don't mean what we kind of translate the word ancestor to mean. They don't mean the family members who have died 100 years ago or so. They don't mean the great-great-grandmas or uncles or aunties or whatever. They mean the builders of their civilization from an ancient past. They're talking about the old ones, the old god, the gods of the ancient past that they believe built their civilization and everything about their culture. So these aren't family members. These ancestor spirits are old, ancient spirits that they consider something worthy of veneration and emulation. So that's why they dress like them, and they understand that this practice of dressing like the thing is to channel the thing, to bring it into their bodies. And when they do dress up like this and do allow the thing into their body, usually then it varies among every culture, but it's usually to gain something from the spirit, whether it's information, knowledge, power. Then the tribes will offer sacrifices up to it. Some people the Thayum, for example, in India, when they do their version of this, people give them live chickens and they have to eat the head off the chicken because it's an offer to the god. It would be disrespectful for the channeler not to eat the thing because the god within them wants the blood, so they have to do it. Do you know what I mean? And this is basically happens everywhere. It's huge in Africa, I'll say that, and it's kind of just ancestor spirit worship is a huge thing in Africa and India, mainly south of the equator. If you go north of the equator, we have a weird way of doing it. Now, in Europe, for example, and in the Russian area, Siberian area, and North Americas, we kind of have our own way of doing it because we're highly Christianized peoples. It's kind of more occulted, it's more hidden in the Western Hemisphere because, we're dealing with demon spirits. If they're roaming around in a realm that's predominantly Christian, then that means they are more prone to be easily cast out and or subject to Christ.
They're not anymore. I mean, look at America.
Well, that's probably part of the agenda, isn't it? That's why there is such a degradation and a removal of God from the Western Hemisphere. Probably is to aid in the outward appearance of these Nephilim creatures coming in through channels and mediums by making people more and more clownish in nature. So this is why I'm saying where the clown kind of comes into it for us. So for these other cultures down south that I've kind of talked about and explained with the veneration and ancestor spirit worship, to them it's perfectly out in the open and understood and well accepted within the culture that that's what they're doing. It's not hidden, it's known, and people gather to watch it happen, and they allow it to happen, and they give the demon, when it's possessing somebody, veneration and adulation and applause, and give it stuff. They want it to happen. People are doing it because they want to be possessed, and the culture is aware of it and don't shun it. They accept it and encourage it in the northern western hemispheres, we don't accept that. That's taboo, that's evil, it's of the devil, it's wrong. We cast them out in Jesus' name. So they have to be hidden, they have to be clever about it in the north to get away with doing this. So to do that, what's been invented is what we call a clown. And to us, a clown is just on a surface, exoteric, what the profane, simple masses are supposed to understand. It's just something silly for the kids. And that's all a clown is to us. However, it's not. It's identical in fashion and design to the same outfits worn by these traditional folk traditions who purposely wear these costumes to be possessed by demons. It's the same costume, same stylistic aesthetics.
Let me interrupt you. One of the questions that I had when I was listening to you interview Raven was, so you're saying that these are the old lowercase g gods.
Yes.
And according to your theory, you're saying that like when God marked Cain, right? He marked him with these. I'm sure we'll get to that. But so you're of the assumption that there were people before Adam and Eve inhabiting the earth.
Oh, well, this is... I'm not 100% on any of this because I wasn't there, but I do like to humour the ideas.
It's got to be, though, right?
Like the theories. I am inclined to believe that, yes, there was some kind of first creation of masses of peoples that were told to go forth, spread, and take over the earth, basically. Go forth and multiply, basically. And that's not what happens to Adam and Eve. It's a different story. Immediately after that phrase, it then says God created Adam and put him in a garden. Yeah. And then there's this period of time.
Interesting. Like talking to like Christian people, they're like, some of them are very hardcore on, oh no, Adam was the first person. If you say something different, but then I'm like, well, then why was Cain so terrified to be like banished from this land? He's like, they'll kill me,
and that he had to have a mark to not be killed. Who's gonna kill him?
Yeah, there's loads of things. I mean, he went to the land of Nod, which was an established place with a name. He knew where to go to.
Yeah.
And places don't get named unless people have named them. And people argue, oh, well, Adam and Eve had loads of sons and daughters. But that's not enough. That doesn't cover the entire earth to enough to build civilizations by this point. It's not enough, and Cain basically goes and becomes a god among these peoples because he has knowledge, which he learned from his father Adam. And Adam walked with God. So they weren't stupid. By comparison, Cain was like a god to these people, and he had this strange mark, which also meant he was practically invincible. No one was allowed to kill him, so he's an immortal god to these people by that standard. There's plenty of speculation over what the mark was, and I cannot answer that age-old 2,000, 3,000, 5,000-year-old debate today. It's one of those things. But what I thought was interesting that fit in with my theory is that there's this thing called the Book of Lamech of Cain and Leviathan, which has just been released in 2019, supposedly, by the Vatican. It's like an old... People say, oh, well, it's not canon, it's a heretical book type of thing. People don't view it with any seriousness, but if you read it, it goes on to explain what the Mark of Cain specifically was. It gives you an answer. It doesn't humour or like postulate. And the character of Lamech from Cain's lineage, 6 generations down from Cain's side, is trying to find out who did Adam mate with? What's going on here? Sorry, who did Cain have sex with? Like, how are we here? And why do we have white skin? And not like me or you. I'm talking porcelain, plaster, leprosy, piece of A4 paper white, vampiric white. It's like, why do we all look like this? And it's kind of, we don't understand. He couldn't understand even himself how Cain managed to create all these people, because if it's just Adam and Eve, then it doesn't make any sense. So he goes on a quest to discover, where did these people come from? What's going on? How did this happen? How did the earth get populated if Adam and Eve are the only people? And he doesn't like the answers he keeps getting from people. He's upset at the prospect, I think, of hearing that he wasn't from the lineage of the first people or something like that. His pride got to him. And by then, he'd kind of made friends with a giant Nephilim who was roaming around at that time, who had taught him how to tame a giant lizard called Leviathan. And every time someone gave him an answer he didn't like, he made Leviathan eat them out of anger and rage. And he's also trying to ask and find out, like, why do we have leprous white skin? So that's implying that's what the mark is, and that's what every generation down from Cain will be marked with. Now, leave racial stuff out of this. It's not about that. This is something else, okay? But what it does make sense to my theory is that the Nephilim are said to have been extremely pale, white-skinned creatures with fiery red and or golden hair with glowing golden and or blue eyes, with a big wide serpent grin and everything. Now, if the seraphim angels, the watchers, are the ones who mated with the daughters of Cain, well, the daughters of Cain would have bore this extremely pale, white-skinned mark. Therefore, it's highly likely that's where the Nephilim genetically got their extremely pale skin with the wild, fiery red hair from their fathers, from the seraphim, from the angels.
I thought the timeline. I thought that the Nephilim might have come before.
No,
but
no.
you're saying that they come after.
The Nephilim are strictly a product of watchers mating with human women in the antediluvian age. That's what the Nephilim are. So there's this talk
human being of the line of Adam and Eve.
Yeah, so Adam
not whatever's before.
So Adam and Eve, it says they had two sons first. It was Cain and Abel. Cain killed Abel. Cain was banished off and started his own lineage with these peoples of day 6. It's the theory I'm going off here. So he started his own kingdom, his own lineage, going by mating and mixing with these people. I don't want to go into details exactly about what the nature of these people were. Maybe they were just like us. They just weren't chosen as special like Adam was or something. I don't think there's any people argue, well, they were lesser evolved humans or something. I don't think so. I think they were just people like us. But Adam was just plucked up as special and put somewhere. That's all Adam's story is about, So Cain went off.
The story of the Bible, right from Adam all the way to Jesus, is just a genealogy of a bloodline. Like, this is how you got Jesus.
Yes, from Seth's lineage, so Adam's third born son after Abel was killed. Seth is the righteous lineage and pure and doesn't mix with these people, I suppose. Maybe thing is, it says I think it's by like the last generation of Noah, everyone's corrupt. It's all mixed. It's just one big blend. You don't know who's who. It doesn't matter anymore. It's just Noah is the only one left who's pure in his generations, essentially. By that point, everyone's corrupted by the end, so it's kind of irrelevant. But the point is, you can trace the lineage of Jesus all the way back through Seth. That's what the Bible is. It's just that's why they're always about the dates, the times, and the names and the families. That's what it's constantly just tracking it right from the beginning, because it's kind of like a war happening, isn't it, between this corruption of God's creation and the perfection of God's creation. I think even after the flood, the Nephilim returned again and tried to do it again, and there's a constant agenda at play to corrupt God's creation, and that's what a lot of this is all about. So I think Cain, who was the first murderer, full of jealousy and pride and hubris, he kind of made friends with the fallen angels, who also had a very similar mindset towards God. They were also cast out of their perfect world, from heaven down to earth. And
it's funny, Paul, because you're saying this whole sort of this manipulation of the genealogy of God's perfect creation by the Nephilim, right, and the fallen.
Yeah.
And so if you look to today's standards, you still have this happening with this whole alien abduction mystery that's going on, which, I'm much more of the mindset that this is still of the fallen, of the Nephilim. But one of the things that they do is that they are abducting people and they are having hybrid babies with them. And I remember when I was younger reading this book by Whitley Strieber. It's called Communion. He talks quite a bit about people's firsthand testimony in regards to being abductee victims. And he says in his sort of wrap up of the story that the point in his mind has something to do with, altering the DNA of mankind, creating this hybrid with our DNA and their DNA. And so looking at that alone in a bubble, it's interesting enough. But as soon as you consider for a moment that these things are not what they're claiming to be, not what our government is telling us they are, not some highly advanced civilization from another planet who, through their own technological means have managed to come, thousands of light years across the galaxy to do whatever the hell it is. No. What if these things are the same ancient adversaries that have been along with us since the dawn of mankind and who are still at the same game, which is changing our DNA, manipulating our DNA, hybridization between our species and their species. And if you look at it that way, it suggests that very much the same exact thing is still happening today.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the agenda shifts slightly because in the first incursion where the Watchers mated with human women, it wasn't all the fallen angels that got involved with that. It was just, I think it was about 200 Watcher-class angels decided to mix themselves with human women and gave into that lust. It seems like they had a bit of a nudge from Lucifer, to do it, like, don't they look beautiful, go and do it type of thing. It's only those Watchers that did that and created the Nephilim that got bound in chains till the end. There were still fallen angels everywhere who weren't bound in chains, who hadn't legally broken any rules, so they don't have to. You know what I mean? They were very sneaky about it in that respect. So only
Are these the angels that were bound in chains at
Yeah.
the bottom of the Euphrates, or are these the ones that were kept in a sort of prison that sounded something to the effect of Tartary or Tartarus?
Hades or Tartarus, yeah. These are the ones that come out of the pit in Revelations. This is Apollyon and Abaddon coming out with the tail scorpion men who have the power to sting, and not kill people in the end times. This is them. It says they'll be released until the final judgment, just before that time. So they're the Watchers who were locked up. Azazel and Semyaza were the leaders of those Watchers. So it wasn't Lucifer, or Satan who was the leader of that particular group who decided to do this. But they're all kind of working together. Once they crossed that line, there was no going back. They knew that. They knew. So it was all based in a rebellion of some kind anyway. So yeah, like I said, those angels locked up, gone, but there's still fallen angels messing around. And after what they saw the punishment was, those angels were like, yeah, we're not going to do that again. Like that's not something we want to end up suffering, because they had to watch the beloved ones, as are described in Enoch, murder each other, which are the Nephilim. So there's this huge war that happens. It's called the Clash of the Titans in Greek mythology, but it's basically the Titans, the giants, start killing each other over power struggles to dominate the earth. And then they also turn on the gods, the pantheon of gods of Mount Olympus, which are the fallen angels of Mount Hermon. It's the same thing, and they start turning on their own parents, thinking, we want to be the only gods on earth. Screw you, parents, we're coming for you, And these are angels they're dealing with, so the angels just murdered them, just absolutely annihilated them, because it's kind of like they're way above any earthly creation, Nephilim or it doesn't matter, You're not going to stand up against these gods as they are. So the parents had to kill their own children, and they had to watch their own children kill each other. So the first...
Dude, this is an amazing anime. Like,
oh yeah. Well, it's
called Attack on Titan.
Yeah, it's the inspiration for all modern media and cartoon. This is where it all comes from. It's the same stories just being retold over and over again with new fictional names and settings, but it's always the same core story. Anyway, these Nephilim, when they were around, they also mated with human women, and they created smaller Nephilim. And then those smaller Nephilim, which were called the Eliud, also mated with human women and created even lesser Nephilim, which were called the Elio. So there wasn't... The OG ones may have killed each other off, but there was still corruption around. There were still these hybrid people everywhere, and these
so
Nephilim
what
creatures.
you're saying is that Nephilim pussy is just whack. Like they just want to smash human cheeks all day long.
I think they had a serious fertility issue, actually. I was talking with Gary Wayne about this when I had him on, and he was explaining how it's not easy for Nephilim to reproduce. It's like they don't really have women like we do. It's because they're not supposed to really exist. They need eggs, so they come to human women to abuse that system in order to propagate and create more. The book of King Og of Bashan is another one of these books, like the book of Lamech, goes on about King Og, who was a Nephilim, who's mentioned in the Bible, and it's his story. And he was warring with Nimrod, it says, or a character called Nimrod anyway. And he was basically, he had his own religion where there was this prophecy of a moon child would come. This female who will then help us propagate more of our own kind. She was like the one to come to save the Nephilim fertility problem. She was the one that was going to help us breed more Nephilim, She was going to solve our issue of our population problem. And then Nimrod kills her. So he's furious. And the whole book is basically him just screaming about how much he hates Nimrod for what he's done. Like, that's basically the whole book.
This is...
Yeah.
Actually really interesting, because if you do a lion and a tiger, it creates a liger, but a liger can't mate with another liger. Its offspring are non-viable. What's interesting about a liger is that it's significantly larger than both a lion and a tiger, but like I said, non-viable offspring if you mate it with another one. But I do believe you can still take that liger and have it mate with either a female tiger or a female lion and still create an offspring that way. But two ligers cannot mate. They're non-viable creatures essentially. And so, and there is this idea that oftentimes when you crossbreed species, one, the offspring is going to be non-viable, and two, it's going to be significantly larger than the original two species. That's something that actually is relatively common in the animal world. So I find that interesting how that sort of almost mirrors the same exact thing when it comes to human beings and Nephilim, although I suppose in the being larger, that doesn't seem to be the case, where they, like you said, there's sort of subsections of Nephilim as they get smaller throughout lineage and have different titles or names. But
still
I
large,
just thought
still
that was
larger than
interesting.
humans, though. Still larger than the latter half of their DNA, you know. But it's just
Right.
that angel blood, the original angels mixing with human women. They're the OG Nephilim. They were the giants. They were like as tall as mountains. These were the ridiculously sized things, you know, that were just humans could not sustain them. They ate too much. They devoured the land, you know. There was no, if they stuck around, there wouldn't be anything left. They would have starved themselves
Right.
after cannibalizing each
You're
other.
talking like 40 feet.
Yeah,
like
these
this
are
kind
these
of
were
shit,
the
right?
stupid ones. These are the ones that were wiped out by God even before the flood. You know, the Nephilim wars. You know, the punishment of the Watchers to watch their own children kill each other. Then after that, we had this problem of, I don't know, 18-foot giants, 9-foot, 10-foot, 12-foot giants, lesser versions, and then you had this other thing happening where it's called the mixing of kinds in the Book of Jasher, and it describes the last like 200, 120 year period just before the flood. Humanity decided we are going to manipulate our own DNA to be like Nephilim. So not birthing new Nephilim, but changing your own DNA to become mutant hybrids. So that's where you start getting all these half-human, half-animal hybrid creatures appearing in this time period. The mermaid, the sirens, you know, the half-bird, half-women people, centaurs, half-horse, half-man, all sorts of crazy chimera stuff that started to be created during this weird time period. And
Where would you
Sorry, go
where
ahead.
would you say ancient Atlantis falls in this time period? Because you're describing a time period of like when I'm thinking about the Bible back in the day, you're thinking of like these guys just walking through with robes and sandals. But possibly we should be thinking about them as having greater technology than ours, like more maybe like wet technology rather than like this tiny mechanical shit, you know?
Oh yeah, they were advanced. There was something weird. To be able to do any of this, you've got to be messing with the fabric of reality on a molecular level. You know what I mean? This is crazy stuff we're talking about here. But that's what's described in these ancient texts. That's what they were doing. They're not mincing the words. They're mixing animals together and creating monsters is literally what it says. Okay, so it's kind of something weird was happening. And, you know, Atlantis was around this time period, which I think was probably destroyed during the flood. That's probably when that was wiped out. But there was definitely something weird going on, you know. Genetic engineering started to happen because the angels, don't forget, had been locked away who mated with humans. So now they have to corrupt the humanity in a new way. So the way they did it was they got the people themselves to corrupt their own DNA. And that's what people started to do. They started to hybridize themselves, giving themselves the wing of an eagle, giving themselves the armor of an insect, for example, just doing stuff to themselves to make themselves more powerful, like gods themselves, appealing to that ye will be as gods mentality that humanity is just so prideful for and lusting after power, you know. And that's what happened. And it says in the Bible, all flesh was corrupted. It grieved God that he even created mankind. Look at the mess they've created. There's nothing left. There's no flesh left. I have to save my creation now. So he made an ark. And he put Noah on it with all the animals that were meant to be there. That was left of them. And, you know, he tried to do a hard reset, basically, to try and get things back on track. So that's biblical
There is
history.
this
Very quickly summed up.
There's
Go on.
this notion that in the end times it'll be as the days of Noah. And as you're talking about this animal-human hybridization, my brain is going towards all these theories that are emerging lately of the idea of a lot of these cryptids having been experiments essentially that have escaped from military facilities. I know one of the strange things that is kind of a cultural thing that's happening right now is that there has been research being conducted on the regenerative properties of the axolotl, I believe is how you pronounce it. It's a small newt-like creature that has the ability to regenerate limbs. And they're trying to see if they can figure out a way to sort of reverse engineer that DNA and apply it to human beings. And what I find really interesting about that is that recently the axolotl has become sort of a cute little character in a lot of children's entertainment. And my son is now aware of them, and he says it all the time. In fact, I'm pretty sure he's listening through the door, and he just shouted it through the door. And so, but there is this permeation of children's culture of this little character, and it makes you, if you're conspiracy minded, you already know that there is an endless amount of things that the government has already experimented with. And so if we're downstream and getting axolotl, reverse engineering DNA to regenerate limbs, well, then the chances are there's already been applied experiments that failed or succeeded. But we are now in a time where that is much more a reality than ever before, maybe since the days of Noah, where we really could be sort of corrupting the flesh of mankind, mixing it with all these various creatures for whatever, experimental purposes you want. And there's even this notion right now that there is these dog men. That's something that Tony Merkel, both Top and I are a fan of a show called The Confessionals, and he handles heavily encryptids. And there is a correlation between people seeing this dog man, this upright walking dog in excess sometimes of like 12 feet, with a body very similar to a man and a face that looks like almost like a German Shepherd, but it does have almost a human aspect to it. You were talking before about glowing eyes that emit light, amber or yellow. This is something that you get a lot of when it comes to these things. But one of the most consistent parallels between one story to the next is their appearance on military bases. Mm-hmm. And almost even this impression that they are there to guard these military bases. So that's enough to entertain mildly the idea that there are some places where experiments are going on where they've commissioned essentially hybridized dog men to guard the base and, against would-be hunters or anything who would accidentally stumble upon these places. And so it's just funny because you go to, I believe it's in Revelations where it says, during the end of days, things will be as the days of Noah. And I feel as though there's so many things that you can pluck out of what was going on before the flood, and you can speculate with a great deal of anecdotal evidence at the very least as to how those things are happening right now and how they all plug into this larger conspiracy, this Nephilim shit, these paranormal cryptid experiences. And so, it's something that I was thinking about while you were speaking.
No, well, I think in terms of being as it was in the days of Noah, it truly will be when the public themselves have been sold the technology and are using it openly. Right now, I do think you're right. I think it's happening in military kind of circumstances, behind the scenes, hidden from us in labs that are doing secret experiments type of stuff. I think that probably is going on, and they are creating these elite guards, let's say. I think I watched a video recently, someone posted in the Telegram, and I think it's like the G-something summit where all the world leaders come together, and they're taking photos of each other. Yeah, they're taking photos, shaking each other's hands, and someone pointed out, look at the guards on either side of them. They're like 13 foot tall. Like, guards are stood next to them, towering over these midgets, shaking each other's hands, and no one's pointed it out. They're on camera right there. Clearly huge human beings, wearing military gear with have a gun and everything, but they are not normal sized people. So something must be. When you said guarding, that made me laugh because I thought that they probably are utilizing genetic engineering to make super soldiers that are the modern day versions of Nephilim. Including mixing DNA with animals to gain certain traits from them, longevity, regeneration, for example. Impermeated skin, whatever they can do to make humans better, human plus. It all fits into the transhumanist movement as well, the idea of mankind taking control of his own evolution. They're slowly selling it to us in the media, but it's a drip feed for now, and these things tend to snowball and very quickly roll out once it's in the collective psyche of humanity, and they need to gauge how people would react to seeing such things. So I think they do subtly place them there on the screen every now and then just to see. Did anyone notice? What's the general consensus? Yeah, what's the general consensus to people noticing these things? Are they for it? Are people saying, "Oh, cool, I wish I was a super soldier"? Or are they saying, "What the hell is going on? We need to turn to Jesus"? What are people saying? I think they do these test runs, but when it is public and when people are willingly taking the mark, the change, the genetic corruption to become X-Men, to become superheroes by their idols they've been programmed with. Yeah. When people start to openly take these things publicly and the masses are taking it and accepting it, That's the days of Noah. We're there then. You know, because, yeah.
I have to shout out once again, Project Cheney in the chat. I love this. We bring this up very often on this show, and I don't know if I've gotten your thoughts on it when you did the Ravens Watch, but this idea that this is not a conspiracy theory. The WikiLeaks of Hillary Clinton's emails looking for Gilgamesh and the buried bodies of the Nephilim. I mean, that is like the highest level of confirmation. And I don't know how when you see the email where Hillary Clinton is talking about sacrificing a chicken to Moloch, you could almost, by some incredible feat of mental gymnastics, say that is a sort of euphemism. And you can say maybe that means she's paying her donors off or something like that, or whatever the case may be. You really have a hard time finding a euphemism that's going to plug in nicely to like, oh, she didn't mean she was looking for Gilgamesh and the buried Nephilim.
Man, how sad are our elites? Like, how fucking stupid do you have to be to write this in? Like, what a boomer. You didn't think this would ever be read by anybody else? Like, you're literally saying, like, I'm looking for the tomb of the Nephilim. And it's like, what are you thinking? And then they rule over us. It's incredible.
I think they know the majority of people just aren't going to take it seriously, or even they don't have enough information or knowledge to even acknowledge what that means when she says she's doing that. They don't know. So they just, rather than trying to figure it out, people just tend to glaze or gloss over that type of stuff and move on to things they can understand that are in their context, their world. This is our world. To us, it makes sense. As soon as we see something like that, we're like, whoa, back up. What? But to them, it's kind of like, I don't understand what that means, whatever, let's keep moving on. It was some Middle East stuff, whatever. It must be something to do with the war in the Middle East, probably nothing important. They probably don't even know Gilgamesh must have been like one of those tyrannical terrorist rulers of some kind of like Hamas, Kabbalist, I don't know, whatever. People don't think like we do about it. They don't understand history, or let alone biblical history.
Paul, In your opinion, do you think a lot of this Nephilim shit ties into our like 20-year war in the Middle East, or the Israeli occupation of this land here and what's going on? Like, because it's ancient territory, right?
People would say it does. I mean, the research I do, I'm not even sure that what we call the Middle East and Israel, that land, even is what was being referenced in the Bible. I think it might be a completely different geographical location, and we're living in some sort of... I don't know anymore, and I tend not to speculate too heavily on their internal politics going on there, and I don't want to fall into that paradigm, but there's some mysterious stuff going on in that place anyway. But there's mysterious stuff going on everywhere on Earth if you actually dig deep enough, you know what I mean? It's not just in the Middle East. So
I
we
just
have
say
mounds
that because,
here in America.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, one of the first things we did when we invaded Iraq was just like basically pillage their museums and their artifacts. Just took all that shit. So like that kind of gets my, the clock's turning in my head, like, what are you doing here?
There's a lot of information found in those artifacts which are from Sumerian and Mesopotamian culture, which pertain to stories of beings enslaving mankind and making them create monolithic structures, and also then manipulating the DNA of these humans to make them a more servile class, which is kind of mirroring the Nephilim Watchers coming down and manipulating the DNA to create the Nephilim. So I think it would be best for everybody who wants to keep that suppressed and hidden to destroy any artifacts or tablets that would tell that story, and then they disseminate what is available and take control of that. It's called controlled opposition, and they disseminate disinformation from there with a bit of truth mixed with lies. I think Zecharia Sitchin did a good job of that when he decoded the Sumerian tablets and came up with this huge story about Nibiru, the 13th planet, bringing, going into all sorts of other false narratives. But it's a sus play. I mean, I just did a video recently about Jordan, the Black Desert in Jordan. I didn't even know this existed until somebody sent me an email about their research into the land and what they're trying to currently do. And there's this team that's trying to get permission to go to the Black Desert to do research on these strange rock formations that have been made in this 1,000-mile wide expanse of just black broken up basalt rocks just covering this land. And it makes no sense why they're even there. And then if you go into Syria a bit north, there's this enormous black flat melted patch, like a huge hole in the ground, which seems to emanate with all this black rock around it. It's kind of, and within these black rocks, for some reason, they've been sculpted into the shapes of embryos from an aerial perspective. And they're literally stage by stage, they've been mapped out next to each other. It's the development of a human embryo, and then at the end, there's a reptilian embryo in the egg. It's kind of it's exactly as it looks in biology, as we see today under a microscope, but on a huge scale. And each one of these egg rock formations is 40 meters wide, and you don't see it until you look at it from an aerial perspective. And it's kind of like, what the hell was going on in this area? This is insane.
It's incredible because we always speculate, as to the reasons for various wars, right? It's like on the surface, to the normies, to the I don't want to say uninitiated because that sounds like we're in a secret society, but you know what I mean. And it's like from the outside looking in,
here,
and I've got fucking like an eye on my shirt and a brick background, and I'm gonna get fucking torched for this episode. So. It's like, oh, well, we're in it because we have to save those people. We have to save those people from their tyrannical oppressor, right? And that's like the baseline. And then after that, it's like, well, really, it's about money and oil, right? And that's like the second step. And if you're willing to go there, then you're kind of considered a conspiracy theorist already. And then it's like, well, no, this is to set up a permanent occupation in these countries and police the planet. And that's like a third level that's a little bit more
or like
nefarious,
poppy fields, shit like that.
Yes, exactly. We have an opium epidemic and we're fucking guarding 90% of the world's poppy fields. But then on top of it, it's the actual reason is more than likely human history and the subversion of human history and the maintenance, the hiding of these ancient sites, that even oftentimes the destruction of these ancient sites. I mean, just that email alone, looking for Gilgamesh and the buried Nephilim, that tells you we're on low level stuff. This isn't necessarily just about money or just about oil or just about permanent occupation. It's certainly not about saving people from their oppressors. But this is also at the highest level about subverting our understanding of who we are and the history of mankind. I mean, this opens up this show with David Icke, and I'm at odds with a lot of what he says. I think he's one of those guys that does 9 truths and one very important lie. You know what I mean? And maybe it's because he's misinformed or being misled by these disembodied spirits of the Atlanteans that he communicates with. But he is right in this idea that we are being lied to on a mass scale, and our history is far stranger than we could even begin to imagine, or at least most people can begin to imagine. So I want to detach from this and get back to sort of the core of why we want to communicate with you today. And one of the things that I think is so interesting about your theory regarding this Nephilim and the visage of the clown is the jester aspect, and also the experiences that one has on dimethyltryptamine, these jesters that people claim to see very regularly in their experiences. And I believe we spoke on the Ravens Watch, and you even mentioned how you thought that the jester hat was much less of a hat and much more of a structure to their being. Yeah. But go at that however way. But Top, you have
Yeah, I kind of want to know too. Actually, before I say this, guys, if you're here, go to Nephilim Death Squad, the YouTube channel. It's in the description, and subscribe to us because I'm going live on a bunch of different platforms. So, but we want you there in that one spot. So like it seems like on one hand they're trying to keep this a secret, the ideas of the Nephilim and what we come from, what we are. And then on the other hand, the idea of the visage of a clown, it's like, why tell us this? Why would that have to, it's like, it seems like it almost has to be done in some form or fashion. Why is that?
What, why are they revealing themselves to look like clowns in the DMT realm? Is that the question?
No, why do we have clowns? Like what's the point of this? Is it just like, what do you think?
Okay, so clowns have been around as a concept way before they were co-opted and turned into a symbol of the Nephilim. So they haven't always represented Nephilim, okay? Jesters themselves haven't always been a representative, even though maybe on a subtle spiritual reflecting of the spiritual realm level, they have always been in some way a reflection of the Nephilim. But we need to go into the history of where we get the clown from to truly answer this question. So this is a story. This is going to take a bit of time. It's not an easy question just to answer. This didn't happen just overnight quickly. This is hundreds of years worth of progress to get to this thing we call a clown, which is then used as a tool by the occult to channel demons. So that's basically what it's for. The one point to make quickly is they don't want us to know what it means. It's an occult. It's a hidden symbol. It's meant to be. The masses aren't supposed to know that it means this. Okay, they're not supposed to know that it's used for this purpose, because then it loses its magic. It loses its point. People can point it out, and they can't use it anymore. It becomes a null and void tool for them, and also it exposes their agenda and what they're all about. But let's do the history of the clown first of all. So,
But it's like they have to tell you.
not
Like,
necessarily.
They have to tell you.
Not
in some way.
necessarily. No, I mean, I don't feel like they've given me hints to make me find this. I think I've just clocked on to what's going on, and I've just told the world what it really is, and so be it. You know, I don't think they intended anyone to figure it out, to be honest. I think it's one of those things that's so ridiculous on the surface that they thought no one would ever figure this out or take it seriously or whatever, you know. I do. There is this whole revelation of the method thing. I know what's going on, but I don't think they want people to know what it's really all about. I think there's a revelation of method in the sense that they want more people, normies we'll call them, dressing like clowns, for the purpose of opening up more portals and channels for demons. There's that externalization stuff going on, but they didn't want people to know that that's what they were doing. They wanted,
You know what's
it's
funny? Before I met Corbo, we're making it happen. Corbo. Before I met him, I was on this shit. After I came back from Jamaica, like I tell my wife all the time, like whenever we see something retarded happening or someone dressed crazy, I just be like, it's clown shit. And then Corbo like kind of coined the Nephilim shit. And I'm like, you know what? Clown shit and Nephilim shit is the same thing. And I heard you on his show, and I was like, yeah, it's the same. It's literally the same thing. We're talking about like two phenomena from like just a different point of view, but it's clown shit, Nephilim shit, very tied in together.
Oh yeah,
and for some reason,
I do believe that there is a certain attitude to the Nephilim which you could call clownish, jokerish, jesterish. Irreverent is the word, you know, anti-human to the point of humor and crudeness. There is a level of comedy to the way the Nephilim behave. Even, for example, there's this one story which I thought was fascinating. It comes from the Americas, in the city Ka, with a tribe that had to deal with this, I think. And you know, it's a city Ka, I think it is, or the Paiutes. They had these cannibalistic giants with pale skin and red hair, and they basically fought against them and killed them in a cave. But there was, in a similar region, there was this people called the Duwamish people who were dealing with a similar tribe, and they weren't so lucky. They didn't win this war against the Nephilim. It was something quite different, and they were talking about these red-haired, tall, pale-skinned giants that were basically just coming along every now and then to the tribes, to these normal people just across the river, and playing with them, messing with them, doing tricks on them, just teasing the humans. 'Cause it's like, what are they going to do? Like bullies, you know what I mean? It's like, and they would play really horrible, cruel, practical jokes on them, like take something really important and just put it on a really high tree where they can't reach it anymore and just laugh about that. You know, they would just do silly things to the humans like jesters would, you know, and they would steal the people's clothing off the line because they thought it was funny. But it also crossed the border of sadistic. They would tell jokes which would make the tribesmen just blush. Really rude, horrible jokes, you know what I mean, about sexually charged, really sexually charged jokes, you know. And this is what this well-established Duwamish tribe in the Americas, ancient tribe, still has this story, this oral tradition story of telling the story. And what these giants were doing, as they always like to do, is they were stealing women for the purpose probably of genetically keeping the lineage going and impregnating them and stuff. But some women returned, some didn't. A lot of them didn't, you know. And the tribes, the braves, the leader and the men decided, we're not taking this anymore. We're sick of the shit that these Nephilim are giving us. We're just sick of it. You know what I mean? And they stood up to them verbally. They said, you have to stop doing this. You have to leave us alone. Right? This isn't fair. It's wrong. What you're doing is wrong. And in reaction to this tiny human daring to speak up to the mighty giants who are far more superior than them, they just decimated the humans. They ripped the heads off all the braves, threw them in the air and let them just fall to the ground and splatter everywhere and die. Just wiped them out. Utterly just destroyed them. And the tribe never recovered from that experience. They never recovered.
Man, it really makes you think about, like, I believe that some passages in the Bible where God was like, yo, go over here and don't leave even a goat alive. Kill their men, their women, their children. I believe that maybe he was sending them to war against some of these giants.
Oh, yeah.
And it's kind of like, what were these men like? Because what you just described is probably very fucking common where even Timothy Alberino thinks that the idea of human sacrifice goes all the way back to the Nephilim, where we're just like, here, take this person, eat them. Like, we can't even feed, we don't have enough shit to feed you, just, that kind of stuff. So it's like, what kind of ferocious warriors were we even thinking about when you're talking about these ancient Israelites that, were actually the real Israelites?
Oh, the ones.
It's funny that you should say that too, because that trope is, you'll find that in all kinds of horror films and things of that nature, where it's like the village has to sacrifice, some member to this giant, monster that's going to eat them essentially in order to appease it and keep it at bay for a long time. And then sometimes it's like, cool, if they have some powers, they'll make it rain or some shit and you'll have a good harvest, but that trope of like, even the trope of the giant coming and stealing the woman away has been recycled and revamped and thrown into Hollywood over and over again. A lot of these things, these cultural entertainment mechanisms, they always have some like really horrific root. And it often goes back to a biblical story, right? Because that's really all we're doing. I think, Paul, you just alluded to that a moment ago, where it's like we're just recycling these stories and telling them over and over again. And the reason they're so potent and they work so well is because they speak to us on a very deep level, like something in us that remembers when they ripped our heads off and threw us 400 feet into the air and let our bodies bounce off the ground and stole our women.
This is the thing. What could you do? What would you actually do if a giant came up to you? I mean, think about the concept of that. I've wrote about it in my book. I made a paragraph where I describe some guy just walking through the forest, walking his dog, suddenly coming across one of these giants, and it eats his dog. Okay, it's kind of, what do? Do you run? What, like 10 steps to you is like a little skip to him? It's nothing. You know what I mean? Do you fight? You're gonna die. You're not gonna win. You get down on your knees and you pray and beg that this thing understands mercy. That's all you can do. If you value your own life,
It sounds like me walking through the ghetto. Is what you're describing. Like, I guess I just say strap, but that's something different.
That's what does it say though? It goes, okay, go back to your village and come back to this spot once a year, once a month, whatever the case is, and bring me an infant. I'm gonna eat the infant, and I won't fucking come and do what I just did to your dog to you and all your homies.
Yeah, well, they usually come back and ask for more.
If you give a mouse a cookie, has anybody ever read if you give a mouse a cookie?
Baby.
And this is the thing.
For your wife.
They didn't need to do that.
We gotta write that fucking book.
Eventually, from my history, my research, they literally became the kings and rulers of this time. They usurped every position of leadership in every human tribe, and they became the kings and the ones that were venerated and the ones that the people had to worship and work for and bring everything to, including the food and the newborns and all sorts of things, and the women. They took over everywhere, and I believe they were working on behalf of their parents, the angels, who they also worked for, and they also created their own religious institutions, which were human beings who sold out their own race, basically, and became these secret serpent cult worship societies, and helped the giants and worked with the giants to keep the people in line, creating false religions so the people would see these giants as gods, or the sun as gods, or the pantheon of angels as gods, whatever it was, as long as it wasn't God, the creator. As long as people...
Sounds like fucking North Korea. It's like, if Kim Jong-un was actually a giant, like this would be very feasible. Do you think that there was some giants were better than others? Like were there any places that were like better to live under? What, like I could only imagine if this is global. You'd have some really retarded ones where like shit was just backwards all the time and it didn't matter. And then some where there was like, okay.
I think there was variation among it all, yeah. Nothing's a monolith, and like I said, by the variation of the religions that still exist today, these ancient folk traditions that have been passed down since this time, you can see the variation, but the core elements are always the same. It's always psychedelic colored clothing to channel the ancestor spirits, and their own reasoning for doing it varies vastly. Sometimes they're doing it in order to appease them, to give them offerings, to keep them away. Sometimes they're doing it because they want power from them. It really varies from tribe to tribe. I think some of them were more in, I don't know if these spirits are attached to a specific locale or something like that from their ancient past, and each tribe is channeling a different type of Nephilim who once ruled that region. Therefore, each spirit demands a different thing from their subjects or their people, perhaps. I don't know, but it seems like there would have been variation. I think, but you wouldn't have been you wouldn't want to have been around for any of them. You would not want to have been, it just none of them were good in any stretch.
I'm just imagining the like the fucking mock election. It was like you can get Nephilim Donald Trump or Nephilim Joe Biden. You're like, fuck. This.
Well, the thing is, the word Nephilim itself, it has its roots in two words, which is Nephal and Nephil. And Nephal means to fall, or product of the fallen, or corrupted in some way. And Nephil, what's it mean again? It's I actually just had it on the tip of my tongue. What were we talking about? The Nephilim are. Catch me up, guys. I'm trying to have lost
giant Donald Trump.
That's it. No, Nephil means it means tyrannical ruler. That's what it means. So they are tyrannical giant rulers of the fallen ones. So they aren't. Okay. People always. I get this argument a lot recently since one of my videos went viral. It's now like 110,000 views. And it's just one of my random episodes of the Nephilim look like clowns. It's like the 42nd episode or something. So there's a lot of context that people do not understand when I'm saying some stuff like the Nephilim are demons, for example. And they don't understand. I've realized there's a huge swath of Christians out there, and even just people who believe that the Nephilim are fallen angels. And there is no evidence for that, not even in the Bible. That's just not the case.
I had over my wife's uncle that you met, and he was over for Thanksgiving as well. And I've had my my aunt, who's a Pentecostal preacher for 40 years. I mean, knows the Bible front and back. And I was like, what do you know about Genesis 6? And both of them are like, very little.
Yeah.
I was like, they just read other shit. I'm like, that's like real important. And I was like, I thought I was going to get some like good scoop or maybe some information. Nothing at all. It's just like they're not interested in this part.
No.
And this is the problem. I get it, but it's,
That's the problem I've realized. I mean, I guess I don't come from a church. I wasn't raised in this realm. I don't speak Christianese. I'm a non-denominational. This is my church. Talking to people about these things online. This is where I get my communion. This is where I get my fellowship, shall we say? So I don't have any of these weird indoctrinated thought processes on where things come from or what biblical concepts are, I suppose. So when I was talking about the Nephilim being the products of fallen angels mixing with human women, people have been lambasting me saying you're wrong. That's incorrect. The fallen angels are the Nephilim. And it's like, well, that's not canon. That's not in anywhere. That's not in the Bible. It doesn't say that that's the case. And they make the case for it because it says Nephilim means to fall, and the angels fell from heaven, therefore fallen angels. And that's all they have. Right. That's all they have to make that connection. And I've just explained to you, well, Nephilim comes from two root words, Hebrew words, Nephil and Nephal, which means giant tyrant and fall. So they are. That doesn't mean they are angels. Like, I don't know where'd you get that from. It wouldn't
to argue that point is so stupid, because that would just mean that you've glossed across it. Because when I first did read it, it seemed like that to me, and it's just at first glance you're like, okay, yeah, kind of makes sense here. But as you really look into it, like, it makes a lot more sense that these were their children. And then you get the next generation, which are the Raphaim, right, and Elohim or whatever it is. So it's like, there's a lot more to this.
Rephaim are also Nephilim. It's just another word for it. It's actually a particular sex group name for the Nephilim. It's a different language's word for it.
So not a different type of Nephilim, but like just
It's a continuation of the pre-flood Nephilim. Because Rephaim, it means something like to heal, or the healed ones, or the undead ones, or the ones that rose from the dead and can heal really quick. So it implies that it's pre-flood Nephilim that have somehow resurrected and become back into the world physically somehow. That's what it's implying by the ones that have healed, that were once dead, basically. The dead ones that have healed. Yeah.
Have you ever seen Tony Merkel? I'm sorry to interrupt you. I feel like this would blow your mind. Tony Merkel on Tinfoil Hat, I forget which episode it was. At the second half of the episode, he's talking about somebody that he interviewed, and he has not released this interview, but this guy apparently, he interviewed the guy that was a witness. And the guy that he's talking about he made a pact with an interdimensional being, and he's like constantly going into this realm and that, and the interdimensional being can also come into this realm, kind of changes this guy's shape. Like, he'll grow and his physical features will change. It's like, it's Paul but not quite Paul, that kind of thing. And in the story, he tells it really quickly, but the guy describes like another world, interdimensional world that lays right on ours or underneath ours, however it is. And there's like just an eternal battle going on there. And people are doing things. They're working for entities. They're working for this one, that one, but they have missions. And it ties in really nicely in my head with a lot of the stuff you're going on about with the Nephilim and what we think of it today.
It's interesting because this is very complex, the spiritual realm you're talking about here. It's not just easily explained by there's one realm and then there's ours, it turns out. Because it seems like there was a lot of Nephilim of the time, and Gary Wayne was talking about this. They all had this afterlife they were hoping to get to physically in physical form. And it's not afterlife for us, it's the Nephilim religion afterlife. It's this place they want to get to where they will be safe. And Gary Wayne was explaining to me, it's like if you behead a Nephilim...
Safe from what?
Humans. God's judgment, basically. So this is the thing. So there was this edict to wipe out all the Nephilim, not only by the flood, but also, like you said, the people of Israel just warring against them and decimating them, absolutely annihilating these giants, these mighty men of renown, these Gibborim. Well, they were also mighty humans, were also called Gibborim. That's what Gibborim means. It's a mighty warrior. And the Nephilim were also Gibborim, but they were Nephilim. So not every Gibborim is a Nephilim, but every Nephilim is a Gibborim. But the human Gibborims, the mighty warriors of Israel, were just decimating these Nephilim. So a lot of these Nephilim were like, God's coming for us. We're not winning against the humans anymore. He's on their side. We need to get away from this before we're doomed to become demon spirits trapped behind the veil in the astral realm. So if they die physically, they're stuck here. That's what demons are today, the disembodied spirits.
Is that what purgatory? That's what purgatory
it's
really
kind of
is?
It's the astral realm, but it's actually the earth. The astral realm, I describe it as the pipework behind the walls of this reality. It's still this reality, but it's the thing that keeps it running. It's the code of this projection. It's the behind the scenes meshing stuff that we don't need to see to know it's making this happen. It's like the plumbing of our reality, it's the behind the scenes workings of our reality. And that's kind of
Right, well,
on that.
On the Ravens Watch, he described it, I thought, really elegantly as this sort of like if you have an ornate rug and there's all this beautiful tapestry on the top of it, right? And all these different designs and colors and everything. But if you lift up that rug, it's just cross stitching underneath. And it's absolute. It's fundamental to the rug. It's part of the entire structure, but it's not beautiful. It's like the plumbing or like the cross stitching of basically
functional.
our realm.
It's called
it's functional.
The analogy is called the warp and the woof. So you have the warp, which we're meant to see, which we experience and love, which is beautifully designed and in order. And then underneath the woof, it's actually where all the when they do the sewing, they move the randomly go to the other end of the rug. And there's a big line made. It's a mess, but it makes the beautiful image on. That's where they are. They're in the woof. They're stuck in this behind working. They haven't got an embodied.
The underside.
Yeah. They don't have a they don't have a
embroidery.
body anymore to inhabit where we are. Where we are is the prize. That's where they want to be. They want to have a body and they want to be here with us because we have senses. We can experience things. We can taste. We can smell. We can see. We can touch. We can have pleasure and fear. We can experience stuff in an embodied form. They can't. They hunger and thirst but have no mouth to feed or to quench those hunger. They have no stomach to quench these things. They are desperate to be back here. They are in hell by any stretch of the definition. And when the Nephilim were alive, they knew that's what would happen to them if they died. They knew their fate, so it seems like what happened, and Gary Wayne explains this, is they were trying to get to places like Valhalla. And it seems like it's like a pocket dimension they can get to in a physical form before they die. So they can stay in this place. And it seems like the fallen angels made these pocket dimensions for the Nephilim to reside in safely. So when the flood came, they didn't die. And that seems to be how they came back after the flood. They just opened the portal and came back into our world physically again. Do you get what I mean?
What that makes me think of? This like pocket dimension. Have you ever heard of the Boneyard, Alaska? This dude, he was on Joe Rogan.
No.
He owns a gold mine in Alaska, and on 5 square acres of it, not large at all, he's uncovered, I don't even know, hundreds of thousands of mammoth tusks, but also mammoth bones and other things that he won't talk about. And then the question is like, well, why the fuck are all these giant bones dying on top of each other? They're like just, they're spraying the permafrost, and the deeper they go, the more bones that they find, like, all on top of each other. It's like, could that be a pocket dimension that, like, Nephilim might want to go there to die? And I know these motherfuckers lying about the dinosaur bones. That was probably giant bones, and then they present this to us however we want. But I don't know. That's something I think about often.
There's mysteries everywhere. I mean, Bigfoot, for example, people describe this weird, tall, hairy creature just manifesting out of nowhere from through a tree portal of some kind, and then suddenly going as quickly as he comes back again. Could these be the Elio, the smaller Nephilim, and even some of the main Nephilim who'd made it to that dimension before they were wiped out? And it says in Gary Wayne was saying, because they could heal really fast, it wasn't enough just to stab a Nephilim or cut them. You had to remove the head. And that's why you always have this symbolic image of them holding up the monster's head. Medusa's head, for example, or the head of Goliath was lifted up. You always take the head off to make sure they cannot come back. They cannot revive. Their body is done for, and then they become demon spirits, obviously. So that's kind of the fate they were trying to avoid when they went to these pocket dimensions, as described by Gary Wayne's research. And it makes a lot of sense as to how they got back. Because if they managed to preserve their physical form, they're immortal beings, don't forget. They can live forever. Like, they have that from their parents' DNA. So they just live forever in this pocket dimension, and they try to just
That's
dart
why
back
this
and
bitch is
forth.
looking for that's why she's looking for the fucking body of Gilgamesh and the fallen Nephilim. If the body's still here, then it's still viable.
Yeah.
And so if they can, essentially reincarnate, come into this realm, re-inhabit that body, then it would just regenerate, and it would go through a healing process. And the next thing you know, we'd have fucking Nephilim running around the street again.
Or
This bitch.
They want to figure out how they did it, the Fountain of Youth sort of thing. That's like what you were talking about in the beginning of the show here, where
the axolotl.
The axolotl, but like the idea of mixing yourself and becoming human plus, that could also be that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think if you can just preserve the DNA of some of these, so that's why mummification was a thing, I think, to try and preserve the DNA so in a future generation can take it back, recreate a body through cloning or whatever you want to do, so then the spirit can come back and inhabit it again. I think that was the forward planning process of all of these. Because don't forget, like I said, all the ancient kings were Nephilim, and all the pharaohs were obsessed with preserving their body for eternity, for as long as they possibly could, in the hopes of being revived one day. And that was the whole point of it, wasn't it? And this is where it all really truly comes from, preserve the DNA, because we've been told by our gods that don't worry, in the future we're going to bring you back. We just need you to do this thing for us, so we can when we have the technology again, we can do it again as it was in the days of Noah, sort of stuff. That's the point. It's kind of, this is a long agenda. This is a long con. They're patient, and I do think the Nephilim look like clowns. I think that's a big part. I really do. And as ridiculous as that sounds, it's scary, because I've recently just made a video. Well, I'm working on the video now. I've wrote the script. And just in the past decade, the past 10 years, I have mapped out the history of clowns in our modern culture. It's everywhere right now. They are forcing it on us in the media. It's ridiculous how much clowns are everywhere and being ingrained into the psyche of just the collective masses who don't know anything.
There's a style of clothing called like clowncore or something.
That's in the
retarded.
list. That's in the list. Yeah, I mean, just at the start of this year, the runways. It's funny, actually. This is the thing. In 2019, the fashion runways did a clown thing. They did clown-inspired clothing, and it had a bad reception then. People were like, what is this? This is ridiculous. Like, even by like our standards in the fashion industry, which is ridiculous anyway, this is too far. This is just silly. That was in 2019. In 4 years later, in 2023, just at the start of this year, they did it again. And they went even harder into the clown aesthetic. And you're just seeing these runway models walking up and down, literally dressed like clowns, like wearing Harlequin clothing and all sorts of stupid, ridiculous things with red noses and all sorts of stuff. And this year, it's been appraised as a wonderful thing. And it goes up, and now you have like the idols dressing up like clowns as well. Like Harry Styles was seen wearing a Harlequin-inspired jumpsuit at the recent thing. They're trying to like sell it to the people as a legitimate fashion choice. Dress like a clown. It's cool. It's in. It's fashionable. It's it's avant-garde. It's edgy. It's what everyone's doing right now. It's the in thing to do. 2023 is the year of the clown. It's in season, and that's what's been happening. And it's like, I believe from my research, once you piece it all together, that's actually an extremely sinister move. They are trying to get the people to dress like Nephilim, for the sole purpose of becoming more viable channels for the disembodied spirits now in the spirit realm. But they're trying to.
That's
that
exactly
works?
what I was about to ask you. That's exactly
you-
what I was going to ask you.
I feel like I feel like there has to be some kind of intentionality to what you're doing, but I suppose just the gesture at it could also create some sort of power, a lesser power than true intentionality. But
I don't think.
What do you think?
I don't think ignorance to the law makes you immune to the law. I think it applies to everybody.
Right. That's like,
yeah.
does a symbol have power even if you don't understand its meaning? You know what I mean? Like, even if you're wielding the symbol but you have no intention behind it, does the symbol alone have power? And I would argue that, yeah, probably.
Maybe to a lesser extent, but I think you find people who dress like a clown and embody the clown character for a while go a little bit insane and end up losing themselves, even if they don't
Heath
fully
Ledger.
understand exactly. But that's
John Wayne Gacy.
That's the cautionary tale, yeah, and exactly. John Wayne Gacy, killed a lot of young men, was consistently dressing like a clown and believed he was a god. It's kind of. I think doing this has a psychological effect on you because you are channeling demons, and this is the point. The demon doesn't want you to know that that's what's happening. So you will think it's organically your own decision-making happening. You'll never equate it to having clown iconography around you all the time or putting on a costume of a clown. You'll never think that that's what's causing all these problems in your life and for everything to just spiral further and further down into depression, for you to start developing strange lusts and desires and all this stuff. Because they don't want you knowing that that's what's happening. It's an occult hidden symbol. But if we take that away from them, and if we make people realize that dressing like this is just opening up portals in a very literal sense, making you the vessel for their spirit, I think we have a chance of maybe slowing down the clown world we currently live in that is absolutely insane, and just spiraling into further and further into depravity and just weirdness. I think, and this is why the pushing of the clown in the media is such a big thing right now. I think they didn't expect people to clock onto it like we have, but I think they're doing it on purpose because they want people to think clowns are cool, to then embody in their own style more clown-like aesthetics, because that's what it does. It opens up channels. If we can reflect how they look in the spirit realm, we become a mirror for them, and that opens up a portal. It's a black mirror in a sense. That's the point. And the more because the astral realm and this realm are the same place, are more linked. If we can perfectly mirror the way they look in the physical realm, then that touches those two barriers together, and they can come through. That's kind of how this works. And like I said,
Thins the veil.
I'm not just making this up. This is what ancient practices still do today and have done for thousands of years in these ancestor spirit worship cultures. They dress like the thing to channel it. It's not a secret. It's just we're stupid. We're ignorant. We don't know that that's what these things are used for. We don't know that.
Yeah.
So, but that's what.
That's why.
Yeah. That's it.
That's why mirrors are so heavily used in the occult, right? There's something about the mirror and as it applies to being able to contact this other dimension or this other realm. I'm experiencing right now in my own life. We talked about it earlier, right? Top used to go forward with this whole like clown shit. If you see something that was like corrosive to society or just poisonous, venomous bullshit,
It's clown shit.
especially if it was high, it's clown shit, right? And we've pivoted now, and it was greatly due to your influence, where now I'm tossing out this idea of like Nephilim shit. So if you have, drag
This
queen
is Nephilim
story hour,
shit.
that's yes.
We
If
got
you have
Owen
drag
Benjamin
queens-
Owen Benjamin to subconsciously say it. Like we're putting it out there. This has to be
Yeah,
known.
it's permeating the culture now, and people are saying it organically. And if you type it up on Twitter, you'll see its use without any reference to me or Top anymore. People are just running with it. And I've had pushback. Well, why is everything Nephilim shit? And like just talking to you during this episode, it's very clear to me why everything is Nephilim shit, because all the highest levels of corruption are the same goddamn game that's been being played on us since our inception, in this realm. And so it's just really funny because I'm finding like I'll get pushback and I'll have a perfectly good explanation, because of guys like you and your research and the dots that I've connected outside of that. And it resonates with people. And I think the only reason it resonates with people is because you find it to be true. It's like, so much of this, especially on a cultural level of corruption and the degradation of our culture or our society can all be traced back to like some ancient biblical practice, something that the Canaanites were doing, or the list goes on. And I mean, they're literally communing with the same entities. This whole Epstein's Island and all this shit is about Moloch, is about child sacrifice. Like, it's all still happening. It's all still Nephilim shit. And once you start to see how things like Epstein's Island, how Hillary Clinton and the hunt for Gilgamesh, when all that shit starts to bleed over into world politics, and then of course we had another guy on the show, Donnie Darkin, who does this really excellent breakdown of it's very compelling. I don't know if I buy it, but it certainly is something that everybody should pause and look at and think very critically about, is this idea of Donald Trump being the Antichrist. And he goes into this unbelievable set of coincidences that are incredibly occult in nature, surrounding the character of Donald Trump and bleeding over into Hollywood and Hollywood's predictive programming about him becoming the president, and all these instances you can find in all these movies. All of this shit is connected. So all of this, whether it's high-level political corruption, whether it's conspiracy theories, whether it's, cryptids and paranormal entities, or, spirits from another realm, more than likely being the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, kind of shaking their fist at us and trying to get us to believe that we suck, whispering to us, you suck and you should fucking kill yourself. I get it now. I understand why. After talking to you, it's like, yeah, because they go to the underside of the rug and it sucks down there and they hate us for it. But there's so much connectivity, and all of it stems from like the Fallen and the Nephilim. And any pushback that I get has actually been really easy to sort of gracefully explain to people. And then boom, it permeates the culture, and people are off running with the expression Nephilim shit. So I think that the reason it's taking off, and the reason that it's becoming a little bit of a cultural phenomenon on Twitter, and it's because it's true. Do you think that are you of the same sentiment? It seems as though you are, that all these things can be traced back. I mean, it's very hard to find a thing that's happening on a large scale that can't be traced back.
Well, yeah, and there's nothing new under the sun. Primarily, like you said, it does seem to lean towards child sacrifice, torture. It always seems to come back to the children. I mean, what is a clown but a thing designed for children as well, And I think a lot of it as well is to do with looshing energy. Fear and or laughter will do whatever that is, as long as they can get that from you through either comedy or fear. I do believe this is a food source for them in their disembodied state. They feed off energy because they don't have mouths to feed off physical things like we do, like food, And I do think that's why the clown is such a perfect symbol as well. I think that's why the Shriners dress like clowns and go to children's hospitals where they're dying. I think they're trying to feed the beast they're channeling. Because what will a clown do to a child but either elicit extreme fear or laughter? It's one of the two. Either way, the energy's still good.
Isn't that the plot of Monsters, Inc.?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a plot of Dr. Sleep, and I mean, Stephen King.
Dr. Sleep is one that was wow.
That motherfucker is tied into this shit. I'm sure your clown theory, like he's like, figured that in like '88.
Oh yeah, definitely.
About it.
He knew what was going on. Absolutely. I mean, Pennywise the clown is only a visage in which a reptilian spider monster takes in order to elicit fear in people, so he can feed off the energy. That's the point. Yeah.
Impossibly wide smile, several rows of teeth, eats children.
Oh yeah, it's a Nephilim creature.
The three orbs that come out of him after he's defeated. If you at the end of the book, if you read it, there's another book, I think Tommy Knockers, but three orbs is mentioned, and they call themselves Legion. So it's like another biblical callback to this, like demons. And so are all Nephilim demons, or are all demons Nephilim?
I think yes and no. So there's. First of all, I want to quell this stupid idea that's out there that demons are fallen angels. They're not. An angel is an angel, fallen or not. They don't turn into demons. You need to get that into people's heads. I think that fallacy is a cause of a lot of misunderstanding and problems and ignorance to this topic of what demons truly are. Jesus wasn't going around casting angels out of people. He was casting unclean spirits out of people, demons out of people, and they have a very specific reason why they're there. They are the Nephilim that died physically and became disembodied spirits, which are stuck on Earth because their spirits are not compatible with leaving this realm. Angels can go wherever they want. Angels are way beyond that. Like they're not stuck anywhere. Like that's just stupid to think that they would be. They're not trapped behind some weird veil and need to possess people. They're angels, for God's sake. Like they sung next to God. You know, these are well beyond our realm. So people need to understand angels are not the demons. But a lot of these creatures we call demons, they are predominantly the disembodied spirits of Nephilim. I have a working theory that also a lot of these lower demons, the lower ones, because there are hierarchies to the demonic realm, are actually humans who Nephilimified themselves just before the flood, who corrupted their physical form. And I believe the body and the spirit and the soul are not disconnected from each other in some weird way. I think if you corrupt the body, you are corrupting the spirit, you are corrupting the soul, you are making yourself incompatible with heaven, you know, with heavenly realms, with God himself. So when people did this to themselves, they became demons in death. They couldn't leave the earth anymore. They took away the God-given right and ability to be able to then be interacting with what God intended us to be, to sleep in Hades till the final judgment, where then there would be the white throne judgment at the end of time. These people aren't elicited that honor anymore. They have to live eternally in this weird hellscape until the end instead. You know, so they're also trapped in this weird place with the Nephilim. I think the Nephilim spirits are higher up in the hierarchy. I think they command the human spirits below them that became these demonic creatures as well, the hybridized human creatures. So I think that's what demons are. There's two classes, Nephilim and faux Nephilim, you know, the false ones that try to be like the Nephilim. That's my working theory. But if you want to just forget that extra bit about the humans, they are just Nephilim spirits, yeah.
Well, it also makes you wonder, what about these hybrid creatures that were created, right? These half human, half animal creatures. What happens to them when they? And so it's probably a very similar thing. And those would probably, if you had to consider what happens to their energy, their spirits when they die, then yeah, they're stuck somewhere, and it would make sense for them to be lesser than the actual Nephilim, the actual offspring of the fallen angels.
Yeah, because they don't have that half angel thing going on like the Nephilim did. But at the same time, they're all just corrupt, fallen, horrible beings in this weird astral realm now. They're all just demons as far as I'm concerned, and they are a defeated enemy. We can literally have authority and cast them out in Jesus' name. We've been given that God-given gift by Jesus when he came and died for our sins, you know, and rose again along with the keys to Hades. It's done. They are defeated. That's the thing. They don't have any power unless we give it to them and remain ignorant to our own power to use against them through the authority gifted to us through Jesus, you know. So we have to remember that.
That shows you how far our society has fallen, because just by, like, you know, I mean, people say this all the time, like people that aren't even Christians, atheists, they'll, you know, call upon the name of Jesus and these things have to flee.
Yeah.
And they're so prevalent in our society today. Like, that's everything is Nephilim shit. Every time I open my eyes, I'm like, man, you can see the mark of demons, for lack of a better word, Nephilim, in everything we do, because we haven't, like, our society, the church has fallen. We have not even considered this. We've lost this knowledge. We've stopped even trying. And all we have to do to kind of turn this thing around is, like, hey, like, you know, listen to this podcast. Like, please, like, fucking turn it around. It's not that hard. We're not fighting with angels. It seems like the real bad angels are the ones that are locked up for the final time, that will be released at the very end. The other ones, the 33% that fallen, seem like they're kind of like roaming around trying not to start too much shit, because they already know that they're in deep shit. You know, it's like we're just dealing with their kids, and we can't, like, this is like how humanity has fallen. We suck. All we got to do is look towards God, and this kind of stops.
Yeah.
But, you know,
well, don't forget, Satan is still around. Lucifer is still around. There's still agenda. But like you said, we won. We've already won. People have just forgotten that. That's the thing we need to remember. That's why there is such a quelling of the information regarding this, which is why it's so suppressed, why there's so much disinformation surrounding who are the demons exactly, what are the angels, and what's the agenda, what's the plan. That's what the whole conspiracy really is about. It's about learning the agenda that's been put against us by these spiritual entities. You know, Ephesians 6:12 makes it clear we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. That's not where our real battle lies. It's against, you know, spiritual wickedness in high places, principalities, powers, you know, these strange creatures that have a weird hierarchy through all dimensions, up and down, you know, and we're kind of in the middle of it, and we're being swayed and moved around like chess pieces on a board. That's basically what the symbol of that whole thing is about. I mean, let's get back to something more relatable for maybe some of our listeners. When you take DMT, for example, I think you're simply just opening up your perceptions to be able to see that woof we were talking about earlier. It's right here on Earth. You haven't gone anywhere special. You've not gone to some mystical realm that's better than where we are currently. But the creatures that come to talk to you, well, they look like jesters and or clowns of some kind, because that's the physical features they had when they were in physical form, now in an even more psychedelic disembodied way. So they lean more towards psychedelic fractal jester than white-skinned, red-haired clown when they were alive on Earth. Do you get what I mean? So that's kind of the distinction there. But they always have the same message. They lie to you and tell you you are a god and do anything they can to lead you away from understanding that there is a god and Jesus is real. So it's always and they'll tell you anything. They all have a different story. That's how you know they're liars. They all say a different thing. There's no consistency behind their message. Oh, we're Palladians from another star system, or we're interdimensional higher ascended masters or something like that, or we're humans from the future.
Yeah, the spirits of the Atlanteans.
Yeah, or we're humans from the future who have reached an enlightened state, who now live in this place where there's no time or something like that. They all have a different story, but the message is always the same. You are a god, which is the same lie that was told by the serpent in the Garden of Eden to Adam and Eve. Take this knowledge and you will be like gods. Your eyes will be opened or something. It never.
It's so funny. It's funny to see our society so obsessed with like space and outer space. I don't think that we can go to outer space. I think this ship might actually be flat, but that's neither here nor there. It's just funny to see how like we're constantly looking up, we're fucking shooting shit at the firmament. It's blowing up, and meanwhile, like the real fantastic world is right here. Right where we are. But we're looking at probably nothing going on out there. Who knows what the fuck? Who cares? The real issue is here, and we haven't even begun to scratch the surface. Like, we need Elon Musk building rockets to go into the other dimension, or shutting down some fucking wormholes or something like that. Instead, we're doing the complete opposite and looking up like a bunch of assholes.
Oh yeah, it's all happening here right now. We are in the midst of it all. I'd say it's exciting times to be alive, but at the same time, it's terrifying as hell. I'm not gonna lie when you really put it into perspective. Like, yeah, we're in deep shit right now. We're in the midst of it all, and it's happening now. I mean, just to summarize this whole clown concept. Maybe some people haven't heard the theory before. We went into a lot of detail on your Ravens podcast, didn't we? Really, the details about why the Nephilim look like clowns, but. Just to summarize that quickly so people don't understand why I'm saying this. So the common descriptor of most Nephilim creatures is white skin and red hair. Wherever you go in history, on every part of the continent, that is the most common way they are described. That's the base of a clown straight away. White skin, face paint, big red fluffy wig of some kind. So that's the base. Alone, those two things are similar. But then you have to go into the details of a clown's makeup, for example. They always have a big wide grin of some kind with big red lips, perhaps. And that's a reptilian feature they inherited from the seraphim angel parents, the fiery flying serpents who mixed with human women. Serpents have very wide mouths. They can dislocate their jaws to eat their prey, for example. And the Nephilim also inherited a very wide maw. So when they opened their mouth and closed it, they had this line mark going around the sides because it was a wide jaw. That's why clowns accentuate that feature and make it as large as they can. The red around the mouth could symbolize that they were cannibalistic in nature. It's blood, it's feeding on things, it's being covered in blood as they eat humans, for example. But it could also literally be, imagine a reptile with human lips. That would look pretty damn trippy. And they'd have these big red lips on a reptilian-like face. It would look like a clown. It would look stupid. It would look strange to the human eye. Uncanny, some could say. Which is a phenomenon people feel when they look at clowns. It's this uncanny valley type of thing. It's almost human, but it's not quite human. There's something weird going on. So clown makeup, they tend to have high brow ridges, big black ridges going like up like this and down. If they close their eyes, it makes it look like they have enormous eyes, and they often shade that in with blue. So it looks like they have big blue glowing eyes, like the Nephilim are said to have had. They often called the glowing ones because of this in other cultures, because of the nature of the huge glowing alien-like eyes. It's a reptilian feature. Snakes tend to have big bulging eyeballs, often glowing gold. If you look at a snake's eye, it's often gold in nature. Clowns often have slits drawn down the eye as well. It's a common feature. Also a reptilian feature they inherited from their parents, the serpentine gods, the seraphim class angels. So clown makeup is just there to accentuate serpent traits. That's all it's really about. on the white skin base, which I've explained earlier through the Mark of Cain, perhaps, but it just seems to be a feature the Nephilim seem to have for some reason on the face. I believe the bodies were incredibly psychedelic, just like any serpent. Look at the reptilian of the earth today that we have, just lizards alone. They are so colourful. They are so bright. Nature's palette is insanely psychedelic when it comes to monsters and creatures of the lizard, amphibian, avian variety, the feathered serpent variety, you know. Multicolored palettes are perfectly normal, and I believe the clown costume, which is often a polka dot bright multicolours, is just a reference to the skin of serpents. So it's just another symbol. It's a caricature. It's an over-exaggerated caricature of these features the Nephilim would have had. The big wild red hair, often they have a skull cap on to make the head look longer, like a cone of some kind, or the forehead to look a lot longer. Elongated skulls are such a common trait of Nephilim. They've been uncovered everywhere, you know, and there's just this phenomena of huge, volumed, heavy, thick skulls are all over the place, and they likely belong to the lower form Nephilim, the Elio and the Eliud, not the 40-foot tall ones, but maybe the 9-foot, 12-foot tall ones, because they tend to be relatively human-sized, just a bit bigger, you know. So that's, again, just another a nod and a wink to the Nephilim, the pinheads, the cone heads, you know, the long heads. Yeah. That's why the clown always usually has that feature somehow. So the ruffle around the neck, that's not a really common trait. That's actually a reptilian frill. Lizards in Australia do have that feature, and I do think a lot of the Nephilim would have had a similar feature as well. It's translated into a silly little cloth around the neck of a clown. Clowns are often associated with having extremely large feet, a nod and a wink to the fact that they used to be giants or large gloves in some way. If not something large, they would also have something tiny like a little hat or a little umbrella. Again, a nod and a wink to these ordinary objects to us would be tiny to them in comparison. It's just a symbol, you know, a metaphor, a nod and a wink to that idea. The idea of many clowns coming out of a car is symbolic of many spirits, legion, coming out of a human body. You know, they are, and also a tiny car full of giants, you know, it's a Nephilim reference again to their giant nature. A car in the dream symbolism world represents a human body. If your car breaks down in a dream, it's very likely in the real world you're currently suffering from some kind of debilitating illness. It's very common people dream about cars breaking down when they've broken their leg, for example, because it's a symbol, it's a sign of your ability to move through the world. Translate that into the real world, a bunch of clowns coming out of a tiny car is a bunch of giant Nephilim legion demons coming out of a human body. It's a symbol, again, so that's, and they're laughing at us when they do these things, you know, that's the whole point of this. It's a joke to them. Clowns are often on stilts as well for that reason, accentuates their height, makes them the fact that they were giants. And again, it's used by secret societies who did this, who created this in circuses which were made by secret societies in the 19th and the 20th century for the specific purpose of recreating rituals that were done in Freemason lodges. So the first early circuses were created by Freemasons. Everything about them was run by the Ringling Brothers, P.T. Barnum and Bailey, all of them. If you know, it's always the something bros. All these old circuses, it's the something brothers, the BROs at the end of every name. Well, a brother is a member of the fraternity. That's the whole point of it. That's what it's actually referencing. They refer to each other as brother Thomas something or other, or brother something. That's what they called each other. So every circus in America, the early ones that came out of Britain from Astley and his horse shows, they were molded by Freemasons to mimic the rituals performed in Freemason lodges. The ringmaster, the Lord of the Ring, the one who orchestrates the ritual of the circus, is a copy of the worshipful Grand Master in a lodge, who is the only one allowed to wear a top hat in the lodge. The top hat wearing leader of the ring in a circus is just the worshipful Grand Master in a Freemason lodge. What do they do but have these rituals in Freemason lodges to summon demons? Well, they're orchestrating the demons or the clowns at the circus. It's just an analogy, it's a parody, it's on a grand scale. They have put into the public during this time period the satanic invocation rituals, hidden and occulted under something fun for the family. But they've managed to get the entire village to get involved in the ritual, because when the circus comes to town, you go. Because what else were you going to do during that time, you know?
I was going to bring my kids to the circus tomorrow, and now I'm like strongly considering not doing that.
I think
Or
circus.
just tell them what's going on. Like, this is all actually about the Nephilim and the fallen. And
They hit 3 and 5. Like, listen, my friend Paul said.
this was the this was the original thing. Okay, circuses today are kind of old fashioned. They're quite rare. I don't think they're as sinister and openly Freemasonic as they used to be. A lot of it transferred over to the clowns going to the media of the TV, for example. It became something else. It started in the theatres and the stages of London, and then it moved into the circuses of America. Then it ended up on TV. You know, the clowns have shifted. You know, and the purpose of their rituals, because back then the circus was the only form of entertainment the masses would go to, because there wasn't really TV. There was reading and stuff like that, but you know, people wanted spectacle, so the circus is where you go for that. But now we can just go to the cinema. It's different.
You know, right?
You know,
I think of like immediately somebody like, you know, instead of the circus, now we're in media, but like Tekashi 6ix9ine, someone like that with this like crazy retarded hair, and he's kind of like, he's just doing he's doing Nephilim shit out there, and it's just like, they just you know, upgraded, and now they're doing
the
it
clown
in a
is
different
shifted.
form.
yeah, it's so I think circuses today are probably a bit cheesy and old, and aren't really what they were initially, historically speaking, in terms of being Freemasonic rituals just on a mass scale. Yeah, today I think they're a bit more tame, more family orientated, a bit of fun for the kids. But I would say there's still a danger in channeling a clown, the image of a clown. You know, whether you believe in it or not is irrelevant. It's still going to affect you and the people around you in some weird way.
Well, the fact that like your initial reaction to a clown would be something of fear or like contempt or loathing, and your initial reaction to a snake is almost identical, should kind of tell people something at a base level.
It puts you on edge, doesn't it? 'Cause you don't know what they're going to do. A clown could throw water in your face at any moment. You don't know how to read their emotions because the face doesn't move because of the makeup. That's how you react to a snake. Is it about to bite me or not? Do I run? Do I stay still? What's it going to do? I can't read its cold, dead eyes, and it's emotional. It doesn't have emotion. You know, it's kind of, we get a similar base, uncanny valley instinctual fear from a clown as we do from a reptile or a snake. It's kind of in us, you know.
Something interesting that I've dealt with. So I lived in New York and I moved to Florida because of the COVID response. But one of the issues that I had with my son is he had like delayed development, because what I think is everybody in New York, besides like immediate family that he saw, is wearing a mask. So you're never reading people's faces, and you don't develop in the proper way. So I like got him out of there as fucking soon as I could. And now he's doing well. But like I'm just imagining the generation of kids that were born at that time period that didn't see a human reaction or face at the supermarket or wherever they went for 2 years, 3 years. And so people still do it to a certain point. So people will still, you know, cover their face. Like this generation, when they grow up, they'll probably be like super susceptible to Nephilim shit, because that's kind of like a precursor to it, right? Like the clown is like hiding this intention behind you, and it's like it's messing with their base instinct of something that they should have immediately, but now it's normalized to them, you know? So it's like, man.
No,
I think it's also, it's really telling too how the clown has just moved entirely out of the realm of humor, and it's like full-time capacity is horror.
Yeah.
It's the stuff of phobias, which is weird, right? Because people have phobias of snakes, people have phobias of, but like as far as an occupation, you know, a clown is people don't have phobias of, I don't know, name another performer, like a ballerina. Nobody has a ballerina phobia, but somehow clowns have pushed their way into almost exclusively horror. That's the thing that they're most known for nowadays. In fact, if you somehow had none of the context of where a clown had been from prior, and you only had today's lens to look through, you would say that a clown is a horror film mechanism exclusively, just by today's standards alone. And it's almost very telling, right? Because it's like, as we progress down the timeline, things get more and more out in the open. And that seems to be following that trend, where it's like starting to reveal its true nature and what it's actually meant for.
It's interesting you should say that, because in the video I'm writing currently, I noticed this trend of when that happened. It was a weird swap. Now, don't get me wrong, the evil clown trope has been around since, like, well, it's basically, you know what I mean? It's been around for a while, maybe from the 80s or maybe a little bit before that. But it's been slowly becoming more prevalent, and it's kind of escalating in a very exponential way in the past 10 years. The evil clown trope is now taken over. And it's interesting. So in 2014, the film came out called Clown, which was about a man who put on a costume of a clown and he couldn't take the costume off. It turns out he's put on the skin of an ancient reptilian demon called a cloyne.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and he can't take this skin off, and he's now turning into more demon-like. He tries to rip the nose off, for example, and it takes all of his skin off with it, and it's fused to his skin. And the only way to be free...
What's this film called?
It's called Clown.
I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna 100%.
2014.
I'm not gonna watch it. I'm not gonna watch it.
I'm gonna fucking watch
2014 Clown. Anyway, I think I haven't watched it myself. I think it's Swedish, and it's based on a Scandinavian mythology of the cloyne. Now, that's a fake mythology. It doesn't exist in the real world. In the film, they've invented this mythology around a cave-dwelling, clown-looking reptile called the cloyne, okay? But anyway, he puts on the skin of the cloyne, can't take it off, he's been possessed by it, and he's basically has to eat 5 children to be free. That's
wild.
That's the plot. And it's about him tackling with the situation. He tries to kill himself, he shoots himself,
Who wrote this?
but he regenerates, he can't die. So it's kind of...
They also work at CERN.
I have no idea, but either way, that came out in 2014, and that was kind of the start of something. Because from then on, things started to happen, and more horror films around clowns started to reveal themselves. And then It came out in 2017 as well, and that really started to make things roll. And obviously 2016, the year before, we had the
clowns in the street.
The clown sightings as well. It all started to coalesce, and this is interesting. You were talking about how it's all predominantly evil clowns now. After the 2016 clown sightings, Ronald McDonald, the mascot, the happy-go-lucky, for children, happy mascot of McDonald's, was removed. He took
Wait. Do you mean the place where they supposedly are eating human meat in their burgers? That they're constantly... there's always, like, once every 2 or 3 years, a story pops up where they're talking about acceptable levels of human DNA having been found in the meat in McDonald's. I swear to you, this is a thing. And also, they have directly attached to them a children's charitable foundation.
But the thing is, The thing is, Ronald McDonald has always been associated with happy-go-lucky fun for the kids, not a scary clown. So as soon as the scary clown switch happened, I find it interesting they removed Ronald McDonald from the public light. He's no longer their mascot. He's only loosely mentioned now in their charity they do for children, Ronald McDonald House. And all you see is his hand holding another child's hand as their symbol. And that's as far as Ronald McDonald goes now.
He's got 6 fingers.
Well, yeah. But
Yo, that's a t-shirt.
Yeah, but
that's fucking sick.
But symbolically speaking, to remove from the public figure, from the public eye, the honest clown for children, and then from then on only to push out demonic clown from then on, maybe symbolic in some way. I don't know. But from that day onwards,
at the same time, we had floated the idea of like basically our generation being the center of whatever's going on right now. Like, they don't give a fuck about the kids now. They're not even making good shit. I was told my kid the other day, I was like, they don't even make shit for you. You're still watching shit that I watch. We watched Blue's Clues the other day. They don't even care. So it's like, so at the same time as they get rid of Ronald McDonald and he becomes sinister, that's our generation. They also said, we don't need these fucking slides in this place. Like, we don't need the thing that you can go back and forth on. They just get rid of the ball pit. Like, fuck these guys. Make it into some, like, postmodern square that's, like, very gray inside, and come and get your fucking goy slop and get out of here. It's like they don't care anymore.
Human-infused fucking burgers, yeah.
To acceptable levels. Let's not get crazy.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. Like I said, but since then, things have... The clown in our modern society has really... Wait till the video comes out. It's going to come out next week anyway. And I've just mapped out the past 10 years of clown phenomena, and it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, even just recent, this is on the nose now. Currently, they've just online a video sensation has happened called The Amazing Digital Circus. People are obsessed with this animation that's just come out. It sparked a new cosplay phenomena. People, all the weebs are going nuts. This is the thing now, you know what I mean? Everyone's just it's the greatest thing ever to be created in terms of animated media. Unbelievable. And it's basically just a 20-minute pilot for this concept of a people trapped in an AI dimension, but the AI dimension they're trapped in, which is run by a corrupt AI who won't let them leave, is a clown world. It's like a circus of some kind with but it's like 90s, early 2000 video game style themed circus effects and aesthetics, and people, maybe it's playing on the nostalgia of people, I don't know, but people are now just obsessed with the main neurotic female character who's just appeared in this world and is stuck there, and she's called Pomni, and she's a jester, and honestly she has the body of a child in this thing, but there's already, as the internet goes, plenty of perverted things made out there obsessing over, and it's become that.
What was that rule? Rule 42 or something?
Is it 37
like,
or 40? I'm not sure. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's one of those rules of the internet, but it's happened, and it's sexualizing the image of a clown more. It's becoming one of these things. That's another phenomenon that seems to be happening recently, and it's just so bizarre. And it's a product of the time, is what I'm trying to explain in my video. People want me to give a breakdown of it, and then because I do the clown stuff, it's like, you've got to talk about this amazing digital circus. There's so much hidden nuance in there and everywhere, and it's like, I could do that, but there's thousands of people who have already done that. But what I will tell you is, look at the trend of the past 10 years. Can you be surprised this has just turned up, and this is why it's so popular and amazing and everyone loves it so much? Why it's already got something stupid like, 150 million views in a week or something like that, It's because of the pattern. If you follow back for the past decade, this is not surprising to me. Like, they have been inundating us with clowns and getting us to a point where we love clowns as a collective. And that's prepping us for the return of the Nephilim. It's prepping us for the days of Noah.
At the same time, these stories that are inherently true, these inherently true archetypes, do speak to some kind of just right at the base of your skull.
Yeah.
It's like something knows, like when it resonates. When you hear a true story, you go, that's the thing. Yeah. That's the thing. So, yeah, it's all of that stuff. It's conditioning. It's just your base level of humanity, understanding what this is. But I wanna bring this episode in for a landing, not a crash landing, a little landing here, because I know that you got to go, and I want to respect your time. So, can you leave us with any final thoughts? Because I feel like we did an okay job letting you go, but we kind of I know I derailed you a bunch. Not as much as tinfoil hat, but
yeah, no, that was fun actually. With Sam Tripoli, I didn't mind being derailed. That was fine. No, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. I don't normally get to talk about, to be honest, so I'm happy for it. I've been doing this for so long, I kind of have a spiel of the same points being hit over and over again. So I don't mind being derailed, because it makes me think about other things and say other things. I have opinions on other things, so I'm happy to be able to say them. That's fine. In terms of final thoughts, there's nothing really I haven't already mentioned in over the past 7 years that I'd really want to say again. Just the important thing to do is to always bring this back to the final ultimate truth of the matter. These are a defeated enemy. Jesus is real too. It's not just about these demons. That's not where we shouldn't just be focusing on them and worrying and panicking about what are we going to do about these clowns. They're done. They're defeated. We have authority over them. If you are suffering from demonic oppression or attacks in the form of these jesters in these other realms or sleep paralysis, just call on the name of Jesus and you'll be saved. Just remember that.
Wow.
That's it.
Amen. That's a great place. I think it's a great place to leave this off. Paul, can you tell these people where they can find you again? Please, it's important that you support his work. Go subscribe to his YouTube channel. When his book drops, fucking do all that stuff, because we need people. Me and Corbo, we're making it happen. We're idiots. All we do is come here and we make jokes and we let smart people tell us shit. But these are the people that you should really be supporting. So just go ahead and tell them again, man.
Yeah, just YouTube, Understanding Conspiracy. If you're struggling to where to start, just go to the playlist tab, hit the Nephilim Look Like Clowns, and start there. But there's plenty of things that you can go into and have a look at that I talk about. But yeah, and also to my own listeners who are currently streaming on my show, go and subscribe to these guys. The link is in the description below. Okay, support them, help them grow. I've been there since the beginning. I talk with these guys behind the scenes as well on Twitter. We're in a little group chat, aren't we? And it's good fun. They're the real deal. Give them a chance. Get in there. Give them a follow.
Thank you. Corbo, anything?
No, I mean, guys, as always, go follow Nephilim Death Squad on Twitter. Subscribe to us on YouTube so we can kind of consolidate the fan base over there. NephilimDeathSquad.com. And I was supposed to do a live Q&A on the Ravens Watch Wednesday. Ended up doing an appearance on Tower Gang. It's very important to me that everybody likes me. So if you want to see me go crush on Tower Gang, go watch that episode. Give the boys a bunch of good feedback about me. And tomorrow I'll be doing my live Q&A. I haven't decided on a time yet. Just keep an eye out on the Ravens Watch for that announcement to drop.
Oh yeah, guys, thank you. We'll see you. We'll see you next week. I don't even know what we got next week, but we'll see you next week for sure. Peace out.
Bye now.
The greatest hypnotist on planet Earth is a oblong box in the corner of the room. It is constantly telling us what to believe is real. If you can persuade them that what they see with their eyes is what there is to see, go. Because they'll laugh in the face of an explanation that portrays the